Each week at this time we do something called a community moment where we invite up someone from the Oasis community to share a thought for the day. Sometimes it's a story of your journey to free thought, or it's an experience you had in your life, or something kind of idea, or you know, even a hobby you're passionate about. So we look for like a lot of diverse community moments, and if you'd like to do one, please get with me, and I'd love to put you on the schedule. Today will be kind of an atypical community moment because we're doing kind of a special project here that Gary's going to tell you more about. So let's welcome Gary Houle for the community moment today.
Before we get started, I want to mention that I may need a little help from the audience today. I ran this by Verena a few weeks ago before I really started working on it, and she reminded me of two things. One, that this was supposed to be for the winter fundraising campaign we have going on. And the second one is when I showed her some of the topics, she said if I started sounding like a psychotic doomsdayer that she was going to cut me off. And so if you see her doing this and I don't catch the signal, just let me know and I'll know my time is up. So we're going to start off with everybody's favorite, a little mathematics. Just a little. This is a exponential growth curve. And what I want to point out, not any equations or things like that, but that the curve typically shows you how for a long time things seem just fine. They're not really out of control in any way. But then all of a sudden at the far end, it starts getting very high very quickly. And the other thing I want to point out is if you look at the axes there, I've got the vertical axis goes up to 100%, like you were using up a quantity or something, and 100% is all of it. And the bottom axis is just time, could be days or years, we'll call it years. And what I want to point out is that by the time you get to 50%, you're all the way over to day or year 93. And you've only used up half of whatever that 100% is. But in the last 7 years, all the rest of it will be gone. Now these are some charts from various Earth systems and socioeconomic data. And the question I want to ask is, do you see any resemblance between these curves and the one I just showed you? And of course the answer is, yeah, I think so. And so you can look at some of them a little bit.
What are the topics? I can't read them.
Not my glasses, I can't either. So I'll just talk about upper left on Earth system is carbon dioxide we're throwing into the atmosphere. Upper left under socioeconomic is population, urban population, large dams, transportation. Take your pick. Bottom left on the Earth trends is tropical forest loss. So it's second from the top on the on this one.
What's shrimp aquaculture? There's one that says shrimp aquaculture on there?
It's just that. Just yeah.
Oh, it's the decline of shrimp aquaculture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. It's not about small people. It's about
Thank you.
So a collection of researchers and scientists around the world have put together 9 categories of what they consider to be planetary boundaries that, if we cross them, potentially could be catastrophic for us. And of course, these boundaries are being pushed by the exponential growth you saw on the previous slide. And currently there's 4 of them that we've already kind of pushed the limit on. And I'll just kind of, we've all been hearing a lot about climate change, that's one of them. Biosphere integrity is about all the different species that we are causing to go extinct. We're causing species to go extinct faster now than any time since human beings lived on the planet. Land system change primarily deals with deforestation, the rainforests that we're destroying hand over foot. Down on the bottom is biogeochemical flows. That's primarily concerned with nitrogen flows from industry and agriculture, fertilizer flows, etc. It's one of the reasons why we have a 6,000 plus square mile dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. And other boundaries are not yet in trouble, but I'll give you some examples, like the freshwater use. About 1/4 of all the major rivers on the planet now rarely or never reach the sea anymore because we use every drop of water that the river provides. One of the interesting one is novel entities, and I'll just give you one example of that. Current estimates are that within 25 years, the mass of plastic waste that we've dumped in the ocean will exceed the mass of the fish that live in the ocean. So anyway, I think those exponential things are showing up there. I'm going to switch tracks for just a second and talk about something called system dynamics. It applies to a lot of things, but in my case I'm talking about computer modeling, that takes all of these different areas and puts them together and says, okay, it's not just one thing that is all by itself, but these things interact with each other. And the process started back in 1970 with Professor Jay Forrester at MIT, who wrote a computer program and published his results in a book called World Dynamics that showed some surprising results of how these things interact and how the whole system responded accordingly. Subsequent to that, a larger analysis was done based on his work, and that resulted 4 years later in the book Limits to Growth. And the latest version of that is the 30-year update of Limits to Growth. And if you're really kind of curious about it, I would recommend looking at that last book. It's not technical, there's not a lot of math in it, but it'll open your eyes as to what's going on and why. And what it does in this Limits to Growth thing is it looks at, in this case, 5 different sectors of the world, basically. And it says, okay, so how do these interact? For example, you can see the pollution, capital investment, population, et cetera, et cetera. And if you want to solve a problem, let's say world hunger by increasing food supply, growing more food. Well, what impact does that have on pollution? That means you have to take capital investment away from things like maybe healthcare and put it into agriculture. So the whole idea of this is to not just look at each individual one, but how does they all work together? And how does the system behave as a consequence? When you run the model, you get these complex little graphs like this that show all kinds of curves about the 5 things: population, pollution, etc. And what I want to do is I want to take one of these curves and focus on it today for a moment. And that's the world population. And if you look at what that curve is telling us, it says that, say about 10 years or so, we're going to peak around 8 billion people, and then we're going to see about a little more than a third of humanity disappear. And I want to emphasize that, that system dynamics is not about predictions. It's not trying to tell us how many people are going to die or something like that. It's telling us how the entire world system behaves. And so there may be a few more, a few less, but at the end of the day, it looks like things are going to get pretty grim here over the rest of this century. Okay, so kind of been the long way around the barn here to get to where I want to be.
Your audience is sinking.
Yeah. No, it's not working. How you try to scare people, so they're like, okay, here's my money, just tell. We've had a lot of people come up, not a lot, we've had 2 people come up here and talk about, our fundraising, that what we need money for Oasis. We need things to pay for things like this room, for administrative costs like the website and things like that, and for other amenities and stuff like that. Basically talking about what Oasis needs from us. But what I want to turn that around and say is, what do I and you need from Oasis, which is kind of what this is all about. We hold this community to be one of compassion and reason, but we live in a world where there's a lot of institutions that don't follow suit. We have religious institutions that are, we're not too fond of women's reproductive rights. We have lobbyists who say, well, we're more concerned with the bottom line than we are with, the health of the environment or the people that are in it. And of course, we have politicians who are more interested in getting and staying in power than they are in, doing what's right for the people that they're supposed to be serving. And so what we need from Oasis is to form a community that will not only survive, but will flourish, so that we can have a larger and larger community of reason and compassion to compete with these opposing forces. And I want to show you what it means, to me in particular, but I think probably to others as well. These are two of my grandchildren. And I spend a lot of time with them, and mostly because I want to. in part because their parents were recently divorced and they're struggling with that. And I have to throw this in there. Their father is a very religious man who is determined that they will learn that everything that they have or ever will have or will ever achieve will be through the grace of God. And I draw a little pleasure out of throwing monkey wrenches into that process. So I spent time with that one too. But the truth of the matter is that, I'm here for them now. But if things get as dark as what, scientists are telling us they're going to, I think they're in for some hard times, and I can't be here for them that far down the road. But what I can do is about a year ago I came to Oasis and I realized, this is a place that maybe can be there for me, that can create, a world, a community of compassion and reason, and spread that compassion and reason so that we can turn the politicians around, we can turn the special interests around. And we'll see about religion, that's a tough one. So, in any event, okay? And so, when we talk about giving to Oasis, whether it's the recurring donations with credit cards or just passing the hat or however it is, we are asking for what Oasis needs. But at the same time, I look at it as, what do I need? I need an organization that can be here and change the world for my grandkids, because I can't be here. I won't be here. We're not sorry, but that's how it's going to be. And so I want to support Oasis, and I would like you to support Oasis, not just for what they need, but for what we need. We need them to be here for our grandchildren and for my grandchildren, so that someday, after the darkness, maybe they can find a world that is light once again like we'd like them to have. Thank you for your attention.